This is Outnumbered. I'm Melissa Francis. Here today is Harris Faulkner. Fox News contributor Lisa Boothe is with us as well, and Democratic strategist and Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall. And joining us on the couch in the center seat, Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. He is host of Liberty File on the Fox Nation app. We have a lot of legal questions.
Yes, we do.
For you today.
Yes.
I love Liberty File, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I have the app.
Oh, you're very
Nice.
kind.
I think most
Good
employees
stuff.
do, but
Yeah, and we have to pay for it. Just in case
$6,
anybody's wondering.
$6 a month.
Yes.
Also, best laugh in cable television.
All right.
absolutely.
There you go. There we go. Let's get into it.
Now we can start.
There we go. Virginia facing an uncertain path forward amid growing questions over whether the Commonwealth's 3 top officials will hang on to their jobs. Lawmakers from both parties weighing in on Capitol Hill.
I think it's interesting that for a long time people have tried to pose this or prop this up as a Republican issue, and we're finding out today it's a human issue, and it's unfortunate that we're finding this out so late in the game.
Listen, I'm shocked and incredibly disappointed. This has been an awful week for Virginia, but I'm just getting the original report.
If all 3 Democrats were to leave office, then Republican Speaker of the House Kirk Cox would be next in line to become governor. However, there is a scenario where Attorney General Herring resigns and Deputy AG Cynthia Hudson, the first African-American woman to hold that position in Virginia, would be next in line for the governor's mansion. In the meantime, President Trump tweeting, quote, "Democrats at the top are killing the great state of Virginia. If the 3 failing polls were Republicans, far stronger action would be taken. Virginia will come back home Republican in 2020. And now the Washington Post editorial board calling on Governor Northam to resign. And here's how the New York Post covered it on their front page, just in case you didn't see it. This is what I woke up to this morning because I get the New York Post at my front door. Virginia is for losers. I always tell my kids we can't say stuff like that. Poking fun at the state's tourism slogan is what they were doing there. Judge Napolitano, let me ask you from a legal perspective. They're talking about the moves that they could make in order for the Democrats to stay in power in Virginia. This idea of the AG resigning and then replacing him before the governor resigns. Does that strike you as legal?
It's doable legally, but I don't know that it's doable politically. I mean, the Constitution of Virginia didn't contemplate it, that this type of musical chairs would happen. But, of course, the Constitution never contemplated what they're going through now. This is far more political than it is legal. I'll tell you what's legal. Governor Northam cannot be impeached. The Virginia Constitution is very clear that officials can only be impeached from statewide office for things they did while in office. Whether he did this or not, it was 35 years ago. The Lieutenant Governor Fairfax cannot be impeached because whether he did this or not for this, it was 15 or 20 years ago. And the same thing with the Attorney General. So their decisions are political. When Richard Nixon resigned, going back in history in a different scenario, it was because Barry Goldwater and Howard Baker, 2 Republicans he respected in the Senate, said, you can't govern anymore. Nobody takes you seriously anymore. If Governor Northam gets a message like that from his own Democrats, he's going to have to rethink whether he wants to stay in office, because he is a powerful governor. It's a state with a powerful governor with lots of levers of power, and the people can't suffer because the government is impotent.
Leslie, let me just ask you, do Democrats want to hold on to power in Virginia under these circumstances? Would it be better to back away from the limelight? What does it mean for the national party? I mean, would the rest of the Democrats around the country like Democrats to take a step back in Virginia so the spotlight goes away?
Well, Virginia is very different than most states in the gubernatorial situation because they have 1 term, okay, first of all. Second of all, as Democrats saying that they have a zero-tolerance policy, whether it be with racism or sexism, Democrats have to step up to the plate here. I don't know what Northam's going to do because he on Monday said that he was still weighing his options. Part of the problem here is within Virginia, this is a political nightmare, not just in Virginia, and it hasn't yet, but could have rippling effects on a national level, which is why you're seeing so many Democrats call for him to resign, and that would go down the line. To your point, Judge, and also Melissa, I think, honestly, in the best interest of not just the Democratic Party, the people of Virginia did elect a Democrat to be governor.
Right.
Okay. And to me, it's sort of like the people, I don't think Virginia is for losers. The people of Virginia aren't losers, but they would lose if they got a governor of an entirely different party. So I think that the Deputy Attorney General Hudson would be, if they can maneuver that, and I think they should maneuver that, because she is a woman, she is African American, she is a Democrat, and then it gets rid of, within Virginia, the nightmare of the sins of, or alleged sins of one and the sins of two others.
But here's the thing. Everyone keeps talking about the impact on the 2020 elections, and everyone keeps forgetting that there are state legislative elections that are coming up this November in the state of Virginia. And you look at the Virginia House of Delegates, you look at the state Senate, and the margins are really tight for Republicans controlling the majority. So there's also the impact of what this has on those elections. And as Leslie pointed out, Virginia, you only have one-term governor. So there really isn't, a lot of pressure for Northam to resign. I actually don't think he's going to step down because of that fact. Because if you look at who currently are the senators of the state, you have Warner and Kaine. They're not going anywhere. So what else does Northam do after his term is over? There's nowhere politically for him to go. So what's the pressure to step down? I just don't see him doing it.
What's interesting about what you just said, I mean, take a look at who the House Speaker is. He's a Republican. He would be next in line after the AG, who also says he wore blackface at a party or whatever. And so you've got Kirk Cox sitting there, and he called for Northam's resignation earlier on.
Right.
So it is interesting, just intra-politics, intrastate politics that would go on depending on whether or not Northam gets to pick another Democrat. Hold on a second, Judge. So my question for you, Leslie, though, is what is worse for your party at this point? I mean, one of the people in succession to the governorship is having a hashtag Me Too moment. The other one is having a hashtag Are You Kidding Me? We're this far into our future, away from all of the minstrel and sort of just, blatant displays of racism. So what is worse? I mean, I'm curious, why not let them all go? What are you, in Melissa's vein, what are you hanging on to at this point?
Well, I don't think anybody is hanging on. I was one of the first Democrats on national TV to call for his resignation.
To resign? Because that's not what we're hearing from anybody anymore. I mean, they were very early on. I shouldn't say anybody. Democrats. Yes. It seems to have quieted
Democrats
down.
And Republicans.
And even where Fairfax is concerned, Tim Kaine said yesterday, I'm going to wait to see what this woman's case looks like. Well, now we know.
In what forum are we going to find out what this woman's case looks like? I mean,
well, she's come out. She's got representation now.
But is there going to be a hearing in which we're going to be able to determine who's more credible, the lieutenant governor or his accuser? I don't know. It's not like a Kavanaugh hearing where they have to testify. One thing I want to say about the legal issues, if Governor Northam leaves, whoever succeeds him could become the longest serving governor in the modern era, because that person can run for a full four-year term.
Right, so that one term doesn't apply in a sense.
Correct.
Yeah. It's a good point.
All right. Meanwhile, the woman accusing, and this gets right to the judge's point, Virginia's Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of sexual assault, has released a statement detailing her allegations of sex assault during the 2004 Democratic National Convention in Boston. Dr. Vanessa Tyson is a professor at Scripps College and a Stanford Fellow. Her statement reads, quote, "What began as consensual kissing quickly turned into sexual assault. I cannot believe, given my obvious distress, that Mr. Fairfax thought his forced sexual act was consensual." End of quote. Lieutenant Governor Fairfax has said that their encounter was consensual. In a new statement that he posted on Twitter, he writes, quote, "At no time did she express to me any discomfort or concern about our interactions, neither during that encounter nor during the months following it when she stayed in touch with me." End of tweet. Some Democrats in the state immediately sided with Dr. Tyson. Virginia Congresswoman Jennifer Wexon tweeted, "I believe Dr. Vanessa Tyson." This scandal is also raising new similarities to allegations against now Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh by Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. Dr. Tyson has hired the same attorneys who represented Dr. Ford. The lieutenant governor has retained the same law firm that represented Justice Kavanaugh.
Well, you almost
judge.
can't make that part of it up. I mean, they are. I think they hired these people, these lawyers, because these lawyers were very astute at PR as well as whatever legal issues. And again, I said this to Melissa earlier. I don't know what the legal issues are. There can be no impeachment hearing for Lieutenant Governor Fairfax, at which Professor Dr. Tyson would testify, because this happened before he was in office. So I don't know in what forum other than the public arena that
Well, and that matters.
Defamation or something?
Say again?
Would it be defamation or something?
Somebody would have to start a lawsuit. You're talking 2 years from now before the case would be tried.
Look at the timing of that, though, and that's why the arena matters, right? Because this then gets thrown into
Does the
politics.
government have credibility? Do the people exercising levels of power have credibility? That is a decision to be made by people in Virginia.
Well,
that's
I think the answer to that now, at least I'm a Virginian, and no, I don't think these lawmakers have credibility. Now, look, I was one of the ones during the Kavanaugh hearing. I believe in due process, and I think what is so difficult about this scenario with Justin Fairfax is a he said, she said situation, which is very difficult to get to the bottom. But what I will say is that there was more evidence in this, in the sense of the accuser remembers that this happened in the 2004 Democratic National Convention. Both of them had said that there was some sort of relationship that took place. And what I do think this does is crystallizes the double standards that exist both in the media and the way they treated Kavanaugh versus the way they're treating Justin Fairfax.
Yes,
and
good
also
point.
of the left, because where are the feminist protesters outside of Justin Fairfax's office saying that this was wrong, that she should
believe
get
all
Vanessa?
women.
Yeah, we believe all women.
All
Where
right.
are they?
A presidential candidate has just spoken moments ago. Kamala Harris, Senator. Let's watch.
I think that the letter written by the woman reads as a credible account, and I think there should be an investigation to get to the bottom of it and determine the facts.
Who launches
That woman
investigation?
also happens to be a doctor and a professor. There are some similarities with Christine Blasey Ford that
Yes.
people are picking up on today and calling out Democrats for. And you hear Kamala Harris, some of them are believing, as she said, the woman. But this was really an issue that just last summer had the whole nation divided. Leslie?
I'm a woman before I'm a Democrat. 98% of accusations of sexual assault by women toward men are correct. They're not lying. So that means approximately 2% are lying.
Where are you getting that statistic?
Statistically, this is actually in an article that I wrote about.
Okay.
And when Christine Blasey Ford came out, I wrote it for Fox News. I believed her. I believe this woman. And in this situation, it could end up being like in the other situation where I also believed, Dr. Ford, that we do have Judge Kavanaugh sitting on the Supreme Court, and it could be that this gentleman becomes the governor, the lieutenant governor becomes the governor.
But why don't you see feminists, outside protesting his office, dressed up as like the Handmaid's Tale and this entire thing that we saw being applied to Brett Kavanaugh? Why aren't we seeing that?
I honestly think that you are going to start seeing that, especially since the letter came out and you're having more Democrats, more women, myself included, being very verbal and open about this. But also I think they view a Supreme Court sitting seat on the Supreme Court in a different position
it's a lifetime
than
appointment
a
versus
state gubernatorial position.
Yeah.
We can parse a lot of disagreement, a lot of distinctions between the two. But are Democrats treated differently when they are the accused than Republicans when they're the accused?
Yes.
I think yes, and on both sides. Sadly.
Why?
Because we saw a split, a partisan split with the belief of Dr. Ford pretty much, and I think we're seeing that here, and I hope that changes.
President Trump and top Democrats clashing over congressional probes after House Intel Committee Chairman Adam Schiff announced that his committee will undertake a sweeping investigation that would go, quote, beyond Russia. The probe will apparently look into whether the president's financial interests are driving his actions in office. President Trump tweeting, so now Congressman Adam Schiff announces, after having found zero Russia collusion, that he is going to be looking at every aspect of my life, both financial and personal. The Republicans never did this to President Obama. Chairman Schiff tweeting, I can understand why the idea of meaningful oversight terrifies the president. Several of his close associates are going to jail, others await trial, and criminal investigations continue. We're going to do our job and won't be distracted or intimidated by threats or attacks. Judge, I just want to point out for the record here, because these facts are from the folks over at Forbes, and in my financial reporting capacity, I know these guys are darn accurate to the point of making people uncomfortable at times. They estimate that the president's licensing business has lost $50 million, that the Trump condo towers are down 33% from their highs, that overall hotel revenue is down $30 million, all since President Trump announced. 3 of his major hotels have been stripped of their branding because it is so polarizing. In other words, he has lost more than $1 billion as a result of becoming president. And when Adam Schiff says he wants to see if he's, using the office to profit,
where's he going?
It seems pretty clear he's not. Even if he was trying, it's not working.
Right. So here's the problem for the president. If the government wants to investigate someone for a potential criminal event, they want to start the investigation, they have to have a kernel of evidence, what we call articulable suspicion. They have to be able to articulate a state of facts that is criminal. Congress doesn't need that. Congress has written laws that allows it to investigate anybody for anything. We talked during the break. They famously investigated Roger Clemens over the content of his urine. Where is that in the Constitution? There is no limit to what the Congress wants to investigate. In my opinion, the Democrats want to run a shadow investigation alongside of Mueller's. Mueller cannot, under the law, reveal what he finds until he files documents in court. The Democrats can conceal, any member of Congress, conceal or reveal whatever they want. Mrs. Pelosi said this morning, I think most Americans want to see the president's tax returns. That is not a basis to invade his privacy. He has the same right to privacy as everybody else, but the Democrats are going to do it.
No, go ahead,
sorry.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, so how does that come about? I mean, who calls them on this? If you're telling me that cannot be done based on Nancy Pelosi saying, I think, blah, 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 then how does it happen?
Well, it cannot be done from a perspective of right versus wrong. It can be done from a political perspective because she's a 40-vote majority in the House, and they have a substantial numerically proportionate majority on the House Intelligence and House Judiciary Committees. They serve a subpoena. The president refuses it. They won't serve it on him. They'll serve it on some neutral party like the IRS, and then a judge will call.
Real quick follow-up then. You say that these are parallel lanes. You've got the Mueller investigation and then a House investigation. What if they come out with different answers?
It's for the American public to address.
I think it's fair for President Trump to say there's presidential harassment here because it is Congress's duty to provide oversight. And I think when you're looking at things like security clearances and some of the things that Democrats have said they're going to do, that is perfectly fair. But to continue to investigate something where we already have a special counsel that's spent, tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money, has been going on since 2017. What is the point of that? Or also, Democrats continue to move the goalposts because originally it was collusion, then it was obstruction of justice with Comey, then it was obstruction of justice with the tweets, and now it's basically any business deal he's ever done. And to Melissa's point, why would anyone in their right mind who's a successful business person, man or woman, if you're Oprah, why would you ever want to run for president?
No matter what.
If this is what you're going to face.
The worst thing you can do to your brand is make it political. That's basic finance 101.
Which is interesting to see her sit with Beto O'Rourke.
There's a couple of things. I think there's a couple of things here. I think a lot of Democrats voted for some of these Democrats, especially new Democrats in the House, to do this and to have these investigations.
Their base wants.
And there's another. It's not just Democrats, but there are people that want the whole truth. And there is testimony that Devin Nunes did not reveal that I think that Congressman Adam Schiff is going to put out there and reveal, and in a sense, let this be decided on their end in the court of public opinion, because obviously they're not going to be able to do anything in a court of law.
So is Mueller not getting to the truth then?
No, I think Mueller is getting to the truth. But quite frankly, Lisa, why, how many investigations were there for over her emails? How many investigations over Benghazi? The list goes on. Whether it's left or right, it seems right now, unfortunately, we're in this investigatory political climate, and it can hurt the party. It can hurt any party.
Yeah, nothing ever comes of any of the investigations.
I would agree with you.
So, Senator, why did you list yourself as an American Indian on this Texas bar application?
So, this was about 30 years ago, and I am not a tribal citizen. Tribes and only tribes determine citizenship. When I was growing up in Oklahoma, I learned about my family the same way most people do. My brothers and I learned from our mom and our dad and our brothers and our sisters, and those were our family stories.
Senator Elizabeth Warren speaking late yesterday afternoon, continuing to apologize for making claims that she had Native American heritage, including on a registration card for the Texas State Bar. The senator says she's sorry for any, quote, harm caused, but insisting she never benefited from any special treatment. The controversy has dogged her as she is expected to officially announce her run for the White House this weekend. The Washington Post is writing Warren faced new doubts about her viability in the presidential race as activists and strategists evaluated how much damage the issue might do, especially given Democrats' focus on finding a candidate who can defeat President Trump and what she might do to move past it, end quote. The senator herself with little to say when asked what voters will think and whether she was still in the race. Watch it.
How do you think voters will react to this?
You know, I'm sure there are pundits who will have an answer for that. But understand, this is from the heart.
Have you considered dropping out of the race?
This has been going on a long time. 2012, I looked this up. May 2nd, I don't know if you guys remember, but she was in a long back and forth. It started with a Boston Herald story in the spring of that year. I listed myself in the directory in hopes that and this was the Law School Association, that it would mean that I would be invited to a luncheon, a group something with people who are like I am. That was May 2nd, 2012. In that back and forth, she explained that she had listed herself as a minority in past professional directories because, quote, I thought I might be invited to meetings where I might meet more people who had grown up like I had grown up. This is stubborn and is not going away, Judge.
I think this shows a serious defect in her thinking and a serious problem with reality and with truthfulness. Yeah. Now, when she made this application to Texas in 1986, the state of Texas was not authorized to compel her to reveal her ethnicity. She was basically saying to Texas, I'm a graduate of Rutgers Law School. I'm admitted to practice in New Jersey. I want reciprocal privileges in Texas. She chose to answer that. She chose to put it down. It wasn't relevant. It wasn't fraudulent. It was just something she wanted them to know. Why?
All right. So when we look at this handwritten card, and I don't want to assume, you know, whose handwriting, because there are a couple of different handwritings there. One is in red, and that might be more of the authority at this registration office. But when you look at it, so what you're saying is where it says physical, it says origin, it says those things. She didn't have to answer that?
Correct. And as a lawyer, she knew she didn't have to answer that. On the other hand, Texas can't take that into account. Texas's only issue is, are you a graduate of a legitimate accredited law school? Yes, Rutgers Law School. Are you admitted to practice elsewhere? Yes, New Jersey. That's all they needed to know. She chose to tell them an untruth about her race, and it wouldn't affect their ability to admit her at all.
Hold on one second. It's still in that back and forth in the year of 2012. I still have a picture on my mantle at home, and it's a picture of my mother's dad, a picture of my grandfather, and my Aunt Bee has walked by that picture at least 1,000 times, remarked that her father, my papa, had high cheekbones like all of the Indians do because that's how she saw it, and my mother got those same great cheekbones and I didn't. And she, though this was the bad deal she had gotten in life, being Native American has been part of my story. I guess since the day I was born, I don't know any other way to describe it, end quote. Leslie, I want you to respond.
I said this yesterday, and I really believe this. First of all, this is a nightmare of her own making, okay? I mean, clearly. And I think, she's apologized. If she's going to run for president or not, move on. She is actually, you know, dragging this out, I think, more than anybody else.
But knowing that she has said this, and that this is part of her history,
right.
I mean...
But I think she...
Is that a defense for her?
I don't know if she's lying. I don't think she's lying. Honestly, my gut is that she was told
She is lying, and I'll tell you why.
I have so many stories from my family, and once I do 23 and I may find out they're completely false.
This is the problem with this whole situation. She is lying about why she wrote it down. And that, if she just came clean about that, if she said, look, at the time when I filled out all these forms, I sincerely believed this to be true. And I wrote it down because I thought I would benefit from being a minority.
There you go.
And I want to take, who in their right mind mind, if you believed you were a Native American, you would write it down because you would want the benefit down the road and you would have the right to it.
But
And
like
I
the
believe-
judge
I
said,
believe
in Texas, she wouldn't have
believed it to be
benefited.
true.
Well,
But
now
she
we know because
benefited
we
at
have
Harvard
her
when they
own
put her on the
words
staff. She benefited in other
that I
places.
just read.
Hang on, there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with it is that right now, every day, every time she talks about it, she continues to lie about why she
But how
wrote
much
it
down. Does this hurt her with the state that she is in?
I'm glad you
Senator
asked me
Warren?
that because that was actually what I wanted to say. So
Because-
about. Well, so Melissa answered the why, but the problem with this politically, as you just asked, is the fact that this undercuts her central theme and the entire premise of her political existence. And that has been fairness. It's about equal treatment, equal application.
point.
But she did not do that.
That
and
is
she
the political
gamed the
problem.
system, and this is why she will never go anywhere politically. And she is now politically dead, essentially. And also what this represents is President Trump's ability to goad people in with his name calling and his trolling to do something stupid. And this has been an issue for her, but it didn't come up to where it was politically
it's clearly
damaging
been an issue.
until he goaded her into trying to answer it with the campaign rollout, and inevitably
But nobody
she really hurt
goaded her
herself.
into having to walk up to the microphones yesterday. As Leslie said, she really is kind of at this point
Is
politically
she in
setting
trouble with
herself on
Democrats
fire.
in Massachusetts?
No, I don't think so.
I don't see that in her own
no,
state.
I
Because
I
if
see
she
it more
said
if
what
she were
I
in
read
Oklahoma. I
in
mean, we don't have a-
2012 and it didn't resonate with them then, I don't know what would be different. To Melissa's point, she says this is how her family saw this, that they had that picture.
That's fine.
I mean, she could just say. She could repeat what she said in May of 2012, I would suppose.
It's bad.
Anyway,
I
we'll
think
move
she
on.
says,
Is
I
she
said
still
I'm
going to
sorry, we're
announce
done.
on Saturday?
Move on.
Should she run for president?
She's still going to announce her
She's not
candidacy
going to
on
be
Saturday.
I said it before. She's not going to be the nominee, even if this had never
Should she
occurred.
take people's money to help her campaign?
Well, if people want to give it to her, why not?
Right?
That's a good question.
I knew that'd get money
Yeah.
over her.
If people want to give it to her, why not?
It is crunch time for members of a bipartisan committee working on a border security deal. Congressional staffers say Monday is the latest the group can finalize legislation without having to pass a short-term spending bill to avoid another government shutdown. Now the members saying a deal appears in reach after a closed-door briefing yesterday from Border Patrol officials. One more potential hurdle, House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer saying that even if they do reach a deal, he has no confidence the president will sign the legislation. As to whether that measure would fund a border wall, here's one top Senate Democrat, Dick Durbin.
I'm going to just hold back from making any public statement on that. Let me say that the issues of border security are being discussed honestly and openly, that there is an effort in this conference committee to reach a bipartisan agreement. I think people of goodwill can do that.
And here's acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney on Hannity last night on the president's commitment to build a border wall.
He is. We would love to work with Congress to do that. That's the right way to do it. It's the easiest way to do it. It's the fastest way to do it. But if Congress won't participate and won't go along, we'll figure out a way to do it with executive authority. And let's be clear about this, legal executive authority. This is not a circumstance of the president overstepping his bounds.
Mulvaney also announcing that he's invited a group of bipartisan lawmakers to Camp David this weekend for what's being called, quote, an honest get-together to reestablish connections of both sides of the aisle. Lisa, I'm going to start with you because I am feeling hopeful that this little gaggle of politicians that have gotten together to get something done, left to their own devices, as Nancy Pelosi said, could actually get this done. Am I a fool for being hopeful?
You're never a fool, Melissa. But no, I agree. I actually do think that they'll get something done. I think you might have new border fencing, perhaps not a quote-unquote wall that President Trump can say, but he'll get some sort of additional enforcement along the southern border. I also think you'll see a really narrowly crafted bill. We're probably not going to see anything with Dreamers or, with addressing. I don't think so, because Congress has not been able to address the issue for so long. There's the limited window here, so I don't think you're going to see any sort of comprehensive deal get done. I think it's going to be really limited in scope. But I also think what we found out from the State of the Union is why Nancy Pelosi didn't want President Trump to give the State of the Union. You had something like 76% of viewers, at least according to the CBS poll, approve of the speech, 72% approved of his immigration policies, almost 50 million people watching. That sure would have helped during the government shutdown when public opinion really mattered.
Leslie, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm hopeful too, and I'm a pessimist, so it's like really weird. I am. Okay, this is what they need to do, and honestly, this is why I think it's exciting when we have two parties that have power. You know, the Democrats have the power in the House, the Republicans have the power in the Senate, because this is really how the government is made to work up. Both sides are supposed to sit down, hash it out, and work together. The problem here is I'm fearful, so here comes the pessimism now coming in, that whatever they come up with is not going to be pleasing to the president. But this is what it comes down to: spin for everybody. If the Republicans can spin it to their constituents, if the Democrats can spin it to their constituents, and if the Republicans can spin it to the president and everybody gets their word and what they want,
has already said that he is continuing to, and I would imagine, take money that he would be given. I don't have to imagine. He says he's also going to use that to restore some of what's already up. That would mean that that technically is a barrier or a wall being used for that money. So Republicans can own it, the president can own it, and Democrats can protect themselves by saying, well, we helped put that up, so we already agree with that.
We have some news coming out right now that is very appropriate to this conversation we're having right now. Fox is confirming that Appropriations Chairman Senator Richard Shelby told reporters he had a meeting with President Trump. It went well, and Shelby expects a deal over the weekend or by Monday. So it sounds like that knocks out Leslie's pessimism over there, that what they're talking about, the president is going to put the kibosh on.
I hope it knocks out what Mick Mulvaney said. I've known him for years and I respect him, but there is no legal authority for the president to spend money that has not been authorized by Congress. They shouldn't be making that threat. The Democrats don't take it seriously. So I'm happy about what you just read, because compromise is the way to go here.
I never believed they were going to go with all those
bludgeoning people with an executive order that'll be invalidated as soon as it's challenged.
There you go.
This is so incredible. This is such a major watershed moment, and I am so incredibly excited that we are going to transition this country into the future, and we are not going to be dragged behind by our past.
Well, moments ago, freshman Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez joining Senator Ed Markey in the unveiling of their outlines of their Green New Deal, the package aimed at limiting U.S. carbon emissions in a decade. The plan outline includes proposals like healthcare for all and federal job guarantees. The Green New Deal has received support from several current and potential 2020 Democratic presidential candidates and the backing of at least 20 House Democrats. There are plenty of Republican critics questioning the plan's viability and the cost, but Speaker Nancy Pelosi is throwing some shade at it, telling Politico, quote, "It will be one of several or maybe many suggestions that we receive. The Green Dream, or whatever they call it, nobody knows what it is, but they're for it, right?" And Speaker Pelosi raising eyebrows earlier, we got a laugh from the judge, earlier today by not naming Ocasio-Cortez to a list of Democrats to serve on a special climate panel. Let's start there, Leslie. Why was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez
I know you
excluded
wanted
from that?
I know you
I
think
just
this.
know. It's a
I know
question.
you think this is the diss of the century, or that Speaker Pelosi is putting AOC in her place. Like,
sounds like it.
I'm the big cat, and
answer
you're
the question. Is it or isn't?
No, I don't think it is.
Why?
Because she's a freshman congressional member. She's already on another committee, and I think, quite frankly, that Speaker Pelosi might feel that that would be too much to put on a freshman congressional member's plate.
Well, and Melissa, I want to talk about this. So you look at things like there's been studies where 2017, the U.S. led the world in reducing carbon emissions. So why do we need the government to interfere when you see innovations in the private sector, things like natural gas, getting it done?
I never think you need the government to intervene on anything, so that is just a layup. But I would say this. Let me point to another part where she's either misinformed or telling an untruth. She talks about the millions of living wage jobs that would be created by this. Not true. If you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics right now, we are creating we need 100,000 new IT workers and IT managers every year to fill our current positions. We're only producing 60,000. We don't have enough people with the technological background to do these jobs that she's talking about. In the meantime, technology like green technology is automating away the jobs that we already have. According to Fortune, we're going to see 800 million jobs disappear to robots by 2030. So when she talks about this, at the same time, the point you're making, the cost of energy will go up for regular people who would hurt the most, middle income people, lower income people, as you pay for green energy versus readily available fossil fuel. That takes a bigger bite out of their wallet than wealthier people wouldn't notice it.
And Judge, let me ask you about that, because that's a great follow-up to what Melissa said. So I think a lot of people can agree on the premise of, you want a clean environment, you want, I think a lot of people would agree on that. But at what cost? And I think that's where it comes down to what a lot of these liberal progressives are putting forward. At what cost are taxpayers and voters willing to pay?
I don't even think this will get through the House of Representatives. There are too many Democrats, I think, who are opposed to this uber progressive health care for all agenda. Look, I'm with Melissa, as you know. Whenever the government touches anything, it becomes more expensive and less efficient.
Yep.
Donald Trump believes that, and there are Democrats in the House who believe that.
This is a non-binding resolution. It doesn't even have to go anywhere if they vote.
So why is
Okay.
Mrs. Pelosi allowing her to do it?
All right. Thank you to the judge. You've got your own show called The Liberty File. You can catch all of those episodes by logging into foxnation.com. Subscribe. Tell us about your show. What do you focus on?
We're examining next week. Leslie would like this. Ooh. Which Democratic candidate, if elected president, is most likely to protect civil liberties?
Oh, I would like that. I'm sorry I'm not here to be on your show to
do you have somebody you want to nominate real quick? What do you think? But no pressure. On that list. Yeah.
Who would protect civil liberties, or who do I think can beat Trump and I want to win?
Yes.
And I want to run Joe Biden.
It's interesting that you'd bring that up, though, because, of course, this is what drives me nuts about the situation in Virginia, is that I'm like, this is exactly why I don't trust politicians to make decisions for my family and myself. I'm not Republican or Democrat. I just think government should be small.
There you go.
Right?
Preaching to the
I agree with
converted.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Leslie's like, forget it. You're dead wrong on all of it. Thank you so much to Judge.